Hey everybody, how y'all doing today? This is Pray for Wolves, and today I kind of struggled to focus on the main topic because I was split between two different topics for today's vlog. See, I wanted to talk about the concept of hope, but I also wanted to talk about the concept of loneliness. And the more I thought of these two topics, the more I realized just how intertwined and connected they were with each other. So, my main question in terms of hope is, where does hope come from? And I think hope and loneliness are very connected because I think that hope is actually pulled from the depths of loneliness. When you think about loneliness, and I mean, there's a lot of talk in this modern day in 2025, especially about the loneliness epidemic. But I mean, you can go back to even the 50s and the 60s with, the Beatles talking about all the lonely people. So loneliness and the loneliness epidemic and the idea that there are so many people out there suffering from loneliness, I definitely don't think that it's anything new. Now, in the modern world, do I think that there's a possibility that it is worse than ever? Sure. And I definitely think that things like social media don't help with this at all. I think that loneliness can be used as a very valuable tool, though. And what I mean by that is this: I think that loneliness forces you to look in the mirror. It forces you to come to terms with who you are as a person. And the thing that is terrifying about loneliness and being alone is that you might look in the mirror and you might not like what you see. You might not like the person looking back into you. It forces you to see yourself for who you really are, not for this false idea of yourself that you have created. So, what does it mean to truly have introspection into yourself and your personality? I kind of almost view it as stepping outside of yourself and seeing yourself as someone else would. And how this can help you is it can really truly allow you to understand the inner machinations of every single decision and every single choice that you make. Now, what does this have to do with hope? Well, in terms of hope, I had a lot of different, I actually have my physical notes written down here, and I had a couple different questions in terms of hope. The main questions being, where does hope come from? And what I have written down here is, does it come from your family? Does it come from your parents? Does it come from romantic relationships? A lot of people get into romantic relationships, and I know that I'm guilty of this for sure, but I mean, it's a common mistake that a lot of people make in relationships, that they try to extract a sense of self-worth from their romantic partner. And that never ends well, because in the long run, you end up putting too much unrealistic expectation on your romantic partner for your happiness, which leads to an either toxic or unfulfilled or just a relationship that doesn't work out in general. Does hope come from seeking validation? I know for a fact that in the past in my life, I have been guilty of seeking validation from external sources. And often we see that this happens when you try to identify with a group, whether it's identifying with a religious group, identifying with a racial group, identifying with any number of things. When you try to become a part of the group, pretty much no matter what you do, you're going to end up losing yourself to the group, because the group is going to set their own expectations onto you to conform to their ways, to conform to the hive mind, so to speak. And in that process of trying to identify with a group, you actually end up losing your sense of self, and you end up losing your individuality in the process. So, trying to seek this hope, trying to find this hope, where do you pull it from? I think that when you are forced into a situation in which you have to be alone and you have to do self-reflection on who you are as a person, I think that hope can be pulled from that. Because I think when you are faced with loneliness, you have two options. You can either sink deep down into the dark abyss of self-pity, self-loathing, and self-hatred. Or you can view it from a totally different perspective. You can take this as an opportunity to truly learn yourself and learn who you are. I think that hope, in my opinion, hope comes from learning to love yourself. Hope comes from learning to love yourself, and hope comes from learning to fulfill yourself. And the way that I might fulfill myself and fulfill my spiritual needs is not the same as other people. Everybody's journey is different. Now, there are different avenues that you can kind of pull important information and pull important things from. So what do I mean? I don't think that hope necessarily comes from your parents per se or your family, but there is something to be said about not necessarily sulking on the past, but sorting through the past and learning to love that person that you were. See, forgiveness doesn't just apply to other people. Forgiveness also applies to yourself. If you can forgive yourself for your past mistakes, that I believe that comes through learning to love your inner child. A lot of people talk about that, learning to love your inner child. And there's a difference between learning from the past and living in the past. I don't think it's a good thing to live in the past, but I definitely think it's a good thing to learn from the past. Now, a lot of people get pulled into different traps, such as FOMO, fear of missed opportunity. A lot of people dwell on the opportunities that either might have passed them by, or those opportunities were in front of them, but they did not have the wherewithal to capitalize on those opportunities. I know for a fact that as I reflect on the years of my life, and I do my best not to live in the past, but to learn from it, I definitely had a lot of opportunities in my life that I didn't value them, or I didn't have the mental maturity, the emotional maturity, the spiritual maturity to truly appreciate those opportunities and to capitalize on them as well. In terms of hope, I think hope is primarily about loving yourself. Now, internal validation versus external validation. That's something I want to hit on here, because I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing per se to seek external validation, but I do think it's a bad thing to put all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak, and to only depend on others for your happiness is not good. Internal validation and self-fulfillment comes from truly loving and appreciating your uniqueness as a human being. And I think a trap that is very easy to fall into in terms of the negative cycles, right? We go through so many negative mental cycles, and we're so hard on ourselves. The neurodivergent community, as I like to refer to myself as, I tell people all the time, I think I've got a sprinkle of a little bit of everything. And I think a lot of people just don't have the confidence or don't have the self-awareness to really recognize that their issues and their troubles in life are truly unique to themselves and to their life experiences. I think a part of the negative self-talk spiral that a lot of people can get themselves into is that they truly buy into and they truly believe the idea that they are not unique and that they are not an individual. But I think when you recognize yourself as an individual, that you can truly begin to take steps to identify what works for you as a person, as an individual person, and what brings you that sense of self-satisfaction, self-fulfillment, self-gratification. You might not be able to make up for your mistakes in a direct manner, but I've started to understand recently that you can truly do your best every single day to make up for your mistakes in an indirect manner. And this simply comes from a very high level of self-awareness and understanding the mistakes you made, the things that you were not aware of in the past, and doing your best to be present in the moment and to be aware of them now in the future. I think there's something to be said about relationships. Now, primarily, I guess I'm talking about romantic relationships right now, but I believe this applies to any sort of relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, a coworker relationship, any sort of relationship you might have in your life, family, extended family, whatever, I think that we often put too much expectation on other people for our problems, to solve our problems, to help us with their problems. Now, there's a fine balance, and it's kind of a teeter totter, and I think that in order to have that balance, it's okay to talk about your problems with the right people. Not everybody, right? You got to know who actually is there for you, who actually might want to hear it, who actually might have insight. You don't want to go telling your problems to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that you meet, because putting too much of your business out there will actually have a negative effect. Then too much of your energy, too much of your problems, too much of your personal business is out in the world for others to critique. And you don't need everybody's insight onto your problems. But to the people in your life that you trust, to the people that matter to you, I think it's okay to share your problems with them. But like I said, it's a balance. And that's one thing, as I'm going through all these different topics right now, it's all about a balancing act. Life really is just a balancing act. The way that I've kind of spoken about it throughout the years is a bunch of spinning plates. As you go through life, you've got all these different parts of your life that you're managing, and you've got all these different plates that you're spinning. And sometimes one of the plates might drop. Maybe it breaks. Maybe it shatters into a million pieces, and you got to get a new plate. Maybe it just chips a little bit, and then you pick the plate back up and you start spinning it again. There's a lot of different ways to manage your spinning plates, and there's a lot of different things you can do to make sure that they don't fall. But it's not easy. And so I guess my conclusion to this whole thought process here is that, where does hope come from? Hope comes from loneliness. It comes from truly being able to see who you are as a person, and to be able to understand your worth as an individual, and to be okay with that worth, and to want to nourish that worth. There's really no other option that you have other than to love yourself. And so I think that's the best way to put it. Sorry if that was kind of a rambling topic, but it's just something that I've been pondering on for the past couple weeks, and I've wanted to make a video on it. I just haven't quite known how to approach it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate all the support you guys have. Leave a comment, follow me on Threads, follow me on Instagram, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace out.